Hey guys, what is going on? My name is Nolan, and this is another episode of Solving Life. Today, I'm going to be doing my first installment breaking down Ark's Big Ideas of 2021 report. Now, this report does follow the 5 different innovation platforms that Ark believes is going to change our world. Today, I'm just going to be focusing in on the electrical vehicle space and how that affects Tesla. So let's just jump right into it. Here we have the report, got the front page. We go into an introduction and a little background on Ark. So Ark claims to identify large-scale investment opportunities by focusing on who we believe to be the leaders, enablers, and beneficiaries of disruptive innovation. While we believe innovation is key to growth, the opportunities it creates can be missed or misunderstood by the traditional investment managers who are more focused on sectors, indexes, short-term earnings, and price movements. To enlighten investors on the impact of these breakthroughs and the opportunities they create, we began publishing the Big Ideas in 2017. This annual research report seeks to highlight the latest developments in innovation and offer some of our most productive research conclusions for the year. Now, most of you know Ark's big kind of claim to fame, or the way they became infamous, is their very, very bullish thesis on Tesla. And their, at the time, out of this world price target for Tesla. As time went on, we saw that they were very spot on with how they looked at Tesla, and their research has shown that they understood Tesla deeper and better than practically anybody in the financial market. Since then, they have continued to give us some great research reports and have been killing it on the market. Their ETFs have seen massive growth, and I'm even invested in one right now, the Genomics Fund. And I trust them with my money because, genomics is definitely way above my pay grade. I'm not a doctor. I don't really like getting into the medical field with my investments because there's just a lot of unknowns and a lot of rumors. A bad trial could really just tank a stock, and it's just, for me, it's not worth the risk. But I do believe genomics is going to change the world, and it's going to be a huge opportunity to invest in. And while I try to find a leader in the space, I trust Ark with their track record and choosing the right stock. So let's just hop right back into it. As you see, they go through the different 5 platforms of innovation. We're going to be focused on the electrical vehicle space and autonomous ride-hailing and how that affects Tesla. Going right into it, EV sales should accelerate significantly. Electric vehicles are approaching sticker price parity with gas-powered cars. And that right there is based on Wright's Law. Ark forecasts that EV sales should increase roughly 20-fold from 2.2 million last year to 40 million units in 2025. And they really want to know whether traditional automakers can transition successfully to electric and autonomous vehicles. So, we have a lot on this little overview slide. And what's really interesting is how Ark really uses Wright's Law and how correct it has been at predicting how disruptive innovative technology comes and how the prices decline over time as it becomes more and more in use. And it's really been a staple in what Ark believes. And we're going to see, or Ark expects us to see, a huge exponential growth in vehicle sales, electric vehicle sales. 2.2 million last year to 40 million. That is an extreme chunk. And we'll see what kind of chunk of that Tesla will get. They're not going to have 100% of it. Might not even have 50%, but shoot, if they just have 20% of that, that's still a lot of vehicles on the road in only 5 years' time. And we'll see, and I'm very, very, very curious to see which traditional automakers will be able to transition successfully. I go back and forth over this a lot of times where, these staples in the auto industry can't all just go bankrupt and go away because they can't make this transition. There's going to be some that can survive, but I don't think it's going to be all of them. I do believe that there's a great chance that a lot of the what we look at as traditional automakers are going to be these new electric vehicle startups like Tesla, Lucid, Rivian. I think those are going to be some pretty big players going forward in the future, and we'll see which other ones join them, because I know there's going to be a lot more just electric vehicle startups, and I do hope we can see a Ford or a GM or a Volkswagen. I do hope that they can make the transition, because I mean a lot of people's jobs do depend on that. They employ a lot of people. They're very big companies. I would hate to see anybody go out of business. Here we see, 2020 has been a very, very tough year, and gas-powered vehicles have decreased during this pandemic, but EV sales continue to grow globally. You see last year, gas-powered vehicles were down 4%. This past year, they were down 15%. If they keep going down year over year like that, that's exactly what you want to see as a EV adopter. And we've already seen a doubling over the year-to-year sales of EVs. 16% to 33%. More and more people are realizing that electric vehicles are a lot cheaper to maintain. They are actually low maintenance, and they're great cars. Most electric vehicles are better, if done right, I should say. Most electric vehicles are better than a gas power equivalent. And here's, Wright's Law has nailed it on the battery cost. For every cumulative doubling of units produced, battery cells cost will fall by 28%. And that is the biggest cost component of an electric vehicle is the battery. So having this decline, that is perfect. That perfect downward going. We're right there, and they don't expect that to stop anytime soon. As you see, they think that we can potentially reach close to that's probably about the 20 to 30 bucks at 10 million vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles. And if we can get that for $20 per kilowatt hour, right now I think Tesla is just around 100, just above 100. That's probably their dot right there that they're using. So we have a long way to go. But if we can hit this goal, think of the opportunities. Think of what the price of a car could be. Think of the margins for companies producing these vehicles if they can get this kilowatt hour structure all the way down to $50, $20, $10. It's phenomenal, the potential opportunities for these companies. Now, right now, there is a limit to the batteries. The technology quite isn't there yet. The supply chain still needs to be created, and I am kind of a little bit afraid that we might see some negative effects of the supply chain a couple years down the road, because we are by no means ready to create 40 million electric vehicles with the resources that we have. And if the supply chain doesn't see rapid growth as well, then these numbers actually might not happen, and they could limit the progress that we all want to see. And right here, we just talked about the total cost of ownership for an EV dropped below that of the Toyota Camry in 2019. Sticker price is about to do the same. As you see throughout these next years, they don't expect the they don't expect the ICE car to have any decline in the price. And they've stayed pretty steadily. They stayed pretty steady. We see about 1,000 increase every couple of years or so with the internal combustion engine, while we've seen massive decline in the average selling price of a 350-mile EV car. It went from $50,000 in 2019 to $39,000 in 2021, and Ark is expecting by 2023 Tesla to create its $25,000 mass market EV that does meet that range requirement in order to create that perfect price parity. And crazily, they expect you to buy a new EV with 350 miles of range for $18,000 in 2025. Now, with that kind of a price point, I can definitely see why they think it's just going to take off in these next couple years. Buying a brand new car that's going to perform better than this Toyota Camry, I would assume, at that price for $18,000, that's substantially lower, an $8,000 lower. A lot of people don't buy new cars because they see that depreciation hit, which is around $5,000 to $8,000. So I think a lot more people are gonna buy a brand new car if they can do an $18,000 car, which sounds insane right now. Looking at range of performance, Ark believes that traditional automakers lack the software and electrical talent necessary to succeed. Your 0 to 60 time decreases and performance gets better. We see the Porsche over here at the best time of a little bit over probably 2.5 seconds, 0 to 60. But they only get about 2 miles per kilowatt. And that's just not going to get it done. You're going to need a huge battery in order to get like a 350 mile range. And that just increases the price, as we saw from that last chart, which is why, the Porsche Taycan Turbo S is a very expensive car. It's massively more expensive. I think it's about double the price of Model S before it hit the Plaid, which I'm sure with the regular Plaid, it's still probably very close to double the price. And we see over time, companies haven't really gotten better. The only two companies to improve in these past 5 years is Nissan and Tesla. If you look at the chart here, Nissan has improved about the rate that Tesla has, but they just have such a long way to go. They have literally zero performance in their vehicle, even with this jump. It's great they're getting almost 4 miles of range per kilowatt hour, but a car that goes 0 to 60 and greater than 8 seconds is, that's terrible. I know there's a huge market for people that don't care about performance, and they just want something that goes to point A to point B and get them to work. But you gotta at least have where the Chevy Bolt is just a little bit above 6 seconds, or the Audi e-tron where it's just under 6. That's the range you kind of need to be around for just a mass market vehicle, because 8 seconds, that's just outrageously long. Where Tesla is in the top EPA range. Only the Hyundai Ioniq is over 4, where Tesla is about the same. So the Ioniq is the same EPA range per kilowatt, but they can do that with only having it accelerate 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. While Tesla can do it, and we'll just call it 4 seconds. That is a huge, huge, huge difference in the performance. We believe that Tesla is the leader in EVs. Their battery technology, their powertrain, their drivetrain, their motors, it's just better than the competition. So now we're talking about how EVs are manufactured. Today, you get the battery cell. You put that cell in a module. Those modules are put into a pack. And then those packs are then put into the vehicle, where the future is what Tesla is trying to create. And that is just going straight from cell to the vehicle and making it actually a structural component in the car. Cell to vehicle designs increase the volumetric density of batteries by 50%. Mass market segment cell to vehicle technology should enable EV makers to lower the energy density and cost. In the mass market segment, cell to vehicle technology should enable EV makers to lower the energy density, producing more kilowatt hours to increase the range of vehicles. At a given battery pack size, cell to vehicle technology should enable longer range vehicles at lower price points. You see there's about a 20% drop in the battery as a percent of volume metric density by getting rid of the packs. This slide right here shows the global electric vehicle sales. As you see, it has been steadily rising since 2013. But we're going to see just a massive jump. And we think that is going to happen because of smaller, cheaper neighborhood electric vehicles. Now, if you could buy a brand new vehicle and you had a Tesla that had better performance, better technology, and the option to upgrade to become fully autonomous over just, we'll say, a Toyota Camry that has outdated technology, you have to put gas in it, you have to go in for oil changes, regular maintenance, and does not have a full self-driving capability, which car would you go for? And we already saw the Camry, was about 26, and that's going to be where Tesla hopes to be able to produce their mass market vehicle. So I think that once they actually do that, people see it, people sit in it, I think the everyday man will be driving around in a Tesla. They're going to be the Apple of the road. And I know Apple is trying to create a electric vehicle. And if they do partner with Hyundai and Kia as they claim, I don't know how I feel about that. I know Hyundai is a little bit better than Kia, but they did merge, and I really just don't trust their cars all that much. So we will see how that goes, the longevity and the battery capabilities. We'll see. They'll be trying to produce something in about 2025, so they will just be a tiny slice because it does take a long time to ramp production like that. So we'll see how much they can contribute, if at all, to that 2025 number. Now moving on to autonomy and autonomous ride-hailing. Autonomous ride-hailing will reduce the cost of mobility to 1/10 the average cost of the taxi today. Autonomous ride-hailing platforms will generate more than $1 trillion in profits per year by 2030. Automakers and fleet owners could enjoy profits of $250 billion and $70 billion, respectively. Adjusted for inflation, the cost to own and operate a personal car has not changed since the Model T. At scale, autonomous taxis will cost the consumers 25 cents per mile. That is a very big jump. I don't think that they are counting EVs in this chart. I would really like to see the jump from the ICE car to the EV to then autonomy, because I think you'd see something closer or something that reflects a little bit better on this chart, because we see that huge price jump from the carriage and horse to the car. I would like to see that go from the car to the EV. It would be less than that 0.70 per mile, but we don't get that. So we'll have to go with the information we're given. And I was never really a big believer in some of these futurists who said that autonomous taxis will take over and you won't even want to own a vehicle because of how cheap it would be. But changing over to my calculator here, it's insane, the cost. So I drove 11,000 miles last year, and that is pretty industry average. Most people drive between 10 and 12,000 a year. We take that for 25 cents a mile, and that right there is less than 3,000 a year. Now, that kind of seems like a lot at just first jump, where, man, you're spending that much money on just transportation. But then you kind of start to dive into it, and you're like, well, shoot, I pay about $200 a month for insurance. You times that by 12. That right there is the big chunk of, that's a huge chunk of that 270,000 or 2,700 that the autonomous taxi service would do. And that doesn't include the fact that I spent $49,000 on a vehicle. So if we just actually just say, hey, insurance doesn't matter, let's divide this by the 2,700 number, it would take about, we'll just even it out, 18 years to pay off a car if you just use autonomous taxis without including insurance. So I'm 25 right now, so we add 18 years to that, that'd be 43. And by then I would need to buy a new car because my car's not going to last me 18 years. It's a nice car. So I think that this is really going to revolutionize. And once you really dive into the numbers, I think that this is going to be a very big and very real possibility that I might only plan to buy one more car in my life, and that would be my Tesla next. And then in 5 to 10 years, I'm just going to be chilling with autonomous taxis. I think that will be the future, and the more and more I look into it, the more convinced I get. Ride-hailing market generates roughly 150 billion in revenue globally, with take rates as high as 50% in high-performing cities. But a lower price point should expand that total market from about 150 billion in revenue, with take rates up to 60%, to make that $6 to $7 trillion by 2030. This chart shows that it's very early on. This is before the price drops to 25 cents per mile. This is early days where it's not scaled, so it's going to be about $1 per mile. And it's also assuming 3 million vehicles on the road. As you see, even with $1 per mile, you are still seeing very, very, very consistent net revenues. In this slide here, we see the 3 different autonomous strategies. We see Tesla's approach, Waymo's, and then we see some of the Chinese players' approaches. So as we look at the chart here, we see that Tesla is at the top, and the top means that it's more flexible and scalable, where the bottom is more rigid and it has limited scalability. Tesla is a more slower learning system because it is a camera-based, it's a neural network, it's trying to learn, but the good thing about it is once it does learn basically how to drive, it'll be able to drive anywhere. It won't need to have a pre-mapped area. It will take less data because it doesn't need to have every single map of the world downloaded. It can just look at any given situation and know what it's going to do. That is basically like we drive as humans. I don't need to study a map and know the exact layout of a town, where all the turns are, where the lines are, before I go there. I drive, I look, I perceive, I interpret, and then I do. And that is the strategy that Tesla is taking. Waymo is using LiDAR and HD mapping, and they have launched an autonomous network in Arizona, but it will need a lot of time and a lot of resources to scale nationally. They also don't have a network like Tesla where customers are providing data, where Waymo is paying programmers or drivers to get this data for them. So it's going to take them a lot more money to scale nationally. And the Chinese players use an infrastructure sensors to help vehicles identify road signs and traffic, requiring large infrastructure investments. This approach to autonomous rail hailing seems to be the most rigid and least scalable. And I believe that means that they will need, all roads to have perfect markings, all signs to be upcapped, and be able to be read by these sensors. So I think it's going to be a lot more on the government to try to help this vehicle maker to become autonomous, because every single road will have to be in perfect condition. It's going to suck when there's any construction, weather that blocks maybe the sensors or like the camera's view of some of those lines. So that's why I think they put that at the bottom. I think Waymo is going to definitely have a little niche. I just don't think that you'll be able to drive from home to work if you're outside of a city or if you're in a suburb. I think it's going to be more just city restricted and only in the big cities, and it's a very limited network. So if Tesla launches its autonomous rail hailing service successfully in 2022, Ark estimates the adoption could approach 20% by 2025. But if Waymo or GM is successful, the adoption rate will probably be limited to about 1% during the next 5 years. And that's because of what we talked about, is where Waymo is more limited to the cities, where in Tesla, all you have to do is drop the car anywhere in the world, and as long as there's a road, it can drive it. It already knows everything that a human would know when driving. It would know the rules, it'd know the speed limit by the signs, it would know how to deal with the construction when it arises. Tesla has the best model, and I wish more people trusted that a camera system can drive, because that's what humans use. And it is kind of interesting that Ark assigns about a 30% probability that Tesla will launch an autonomous ride-hailing service successfully. I think that is definitely on the lower side. No matter who does it first, I don't know if that was kind of what they were saying, but I think that Tesla will definitely solve it. I think they have almost 100% probability that they will solve it eventually, just not 100% that they'll be the first ones to do it. Now we're looking at kind of the demand and how it can actually play out. So we believe that autonomous ride-hailing will undercut the cost of human-driven ride-hailing by roughly 90% in the US and 50% in China. The differences between the US and China is just how expensive the traditional ride-hailing services are. In America, Uber is about $2 a mile, where in China, it's about 50 cents a mile. Auto manufacturers with successful electrical vehicle platforms partnered with autonomous technology providers could generate roughly $250 billion in earnings annually in 2030. Enterprise value for autonomous platform operators could scale to about $3.8 trillion by 2025. I mean, when you have people who are willing to sell their cars to just use an autonomous taxi service, that's going to extremely raise the rate of usage and expand the market indefinitely. Alrighty guys, that wraps up what Ark thinks is possible in the future in the electrical vehicle space and with autonomous services. Please let me know in the comments if you think what Ark is saying is plausible or if you have any disagreements. I'd love to know if you think that in the future you will sell your car and only use an autonomous ride-hailing service. Thank you for watching the video. If you guys are sticking around this long, I really appreciate it if you guys could give a like and subscribe to see further content. I try to do videos as often as I can, but my schedule is a little demanding and I really wanted to kind of scale back just the sheer amount of videos and focus more on the quality and making sure I'm providing you guys good quality on those. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. My name is Nolan and this is how we solve life.